The Prison Experience. Joe Goes to Somerset. Chapter 12. Finding out that Joe had been removed from my parents' custody was not an easy thing to deal with in prison. Trying to find out what had happened and where he was located at was not so easy either. You might think they would ask me about his medical problems and disability. No, they did not. I eventually found out that he had been moved to a facility in Somerset, Kentucky. I wrote letters trying to establish some form of communication with the staff and people in charge of him. I got back very little info. No one knows my son better than I do, but that didn't matter either. It seemed that the only things that mattered was that I paid for this auto accident that wasn't my fault in the first place, and pay I did. I lost my son in a lot of ways during my prison term. I sent letters and pictures and things to him. I never got one letter back from him. My parents got to visit him, however, and they would write me letting me know what they could. Joe's safety and well-being was always in the back of my mind, no matter how things were going at Blackburn. My outside world had fallen apart, and I did my best to work hard and stay focused on getting out as quickly as possible. Word came that a parole hearing was coming up, so I prepared for that. One thing I did was put a petition together with a list of signed names from the area in support of me being paroled back into the community. I had around 50 signed names. After the store fire, losing my son's custody and the work I had done at Blackburn, I thought I had a good shot at making parole. I submitted the list of names, the work I had done, and an overview of my situation. When the day came for the parole hearing, I waited my turn with the other inmates that were up for parole in the administration building at Blackburn. When my turn came, I didn't get to say a whole lot, just yes and no answers. The parole board was cold and uncaring, and I was denied. Everyone else who was up for parole made it except for me. After being denied parole, I came to realize that I would have to finish out my sentence. After talking to some of the other inmates who had car accident cases, I found out that I wasn't the only one. There were a few inmates who had to finish out their sentences as well, although they had less time to finish than I did. We checked on each other's progress and what programs, if any, that we were doing. I completed the MRT mentor program and completed the masonry program. After finishing masonry, I went back to the library to find another job and got hired there as a clerk in the law office. Clerking at the library was similar to being a grievance aide. Basically, I handed out various forms and policy to the inmates upon request. I had a filing cabinet full of forms: divorce forms, name changing forms, forms for parole, and for pardon. I did do a pardon request, but never heard anything from it. There were forms for just about every occasion, and the inmates in the know made use of them as well as reading up on the current policies. I liked the clerking job. It wasn't very hard, and I had time to read and write letters. I also used this time to write some songs. For a while I was without a program, and getting into another one was becoming difficult. I found out about the anger management program taught by Miss V and thought that I qualified. I sort of didn't want to sign up for it, but it would be another 90 days off my sentence. With no chance for parole, I pursued getting in and finally was accepted. The anger management workbook wasn't very big, and I had MRT experience, so it wasn't very difficult. I did have to do some extra assignments involving having confidence. Miss V must have thought I didn't have any. My version of confidence is a little twisted, I guess, but I wasn't exactly vacationing at the beach in the Cayman Islands either. Anyway, we learned some really good techniques on dealing with anger and stress. I'm not an angry person by nature. Actually, I'm a lot of fun and outgoing, but the terrible situations others has caused me without making a victim statement is enough to make anyone upset. And no one is coming to my rescue either. The situation in the outside world doesn't look all that appealing. There was nothing for guys like me in my neighborhood, and Pike County hadn't been all that friendly to me to start with. Anger management was a 6-month program. I'm glad I got to do it. There's a lot of competition to even get into the programs. I had to finish up my sentence while others would make parole upon completion of a program or two. After finishing anger management, I was going to try to be a mentor. I requested an application a few times but never got one. This was the last program I did under Miss Valentine. I continued with my clerking job at the library, keeping up with Esquire magazine and Rolling Stone, writing songs and staying out of trouble. I listened to my radio daily and tried to make the most of every day. I studied Wicca privately, even though I was raised in a Christian church. Wicca made some sense to me. Other inmates were studying a variety of religious faiths. Most all of them were allowed at Blackburn, and most had special meeting times and etc. I kept my Wicca studies to myself and didn't openly let anyone know what I practiced. The winter months were cold at Blackburn. I walked the track yard every day in the winter months. Standing in line waiting to get canteen was no fun in the winter time either. I figured out how to best use my time and to be patient when it came to doing most things. I kept track of the time I had left on my sentence, which everyone did. Everyone knew how much time they had left to do. I kept in touch with Mom and Dad through letters and tried to find out as much as I could about Joe. It was tough going through prison without any real friends on the outside. But on the inside, I had met some really good people. Most inmates referred to me as Ozzy, but not everyone did. And for the most part, I got along with everyone.